Is the unnamed tavern named Unnamed Tavern? Is Unnamed Tavern named Unnamed Tavern, or is it a tavern that's not been named?
Next topic. Florida is always doing something.
Of course.
Florida's always got something going on. So recently okay, so this law is advancing. It's not a law that's in place yet. So just to be clear, this is not a currently active thing. This is just something that is currently moving through Florida's government system. And it is that 16-year-olds are supposed to be banned from using social media.
So,
This is coming
first of all,
from...
What makes you think you could prevent people who are 16 from using whatever they want on the internet? Like,
Well, it is
have
under
you
16.
met kids?
Yeah, have you?
They will run circles around you when it comes to tech, I promise.
So it says
Like,
Florida
please.
lawmakers advanced a bill on Wednesday that would prohibit social media platforms from allowing young teens to have an account while requiring everyone else to verify their age. The measure prohibits anyone under 16 from creating a new social media account and requires platforms to delete existing accounts held by minors who are younger than 16. It would also require social media companies to delete any personal information from the accounts and for the platforms to use, quote, a non-governmental, independent third party not affiliated with a social media platform to verify ages. The bill passed in Florida's House with a bipartisan 106 to 13 vote, and now heads to the Republican-controlled state. Quote, these dopamine hits from social media are so addictive, it's like a digital fentanyl, said Fiona McFarland, a Republican state lawmaker who co-sponsored the legislation, said on the House floor on Wednesday, according to Politico, and, quote, and even the most plugged-in parent or attuned teen has a hard time shutting the door against these addictive features.
May I start, please? Right
Good.
Run,
go. Take it and be gone.
Listen, you dipshits. So instead of going after the companies who make these algorithms to get kids addicted, right? You're going after the kids. Who are the victims in this case?
The laws are preventing the children, but the responsibility is being put onto, like, Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. Yeah. So Twitter's the one who's responsible for making sure that all the Twitter users are above the age of 16. Well, their reasoning, as far as I'm concerned, is completely ass backwards.
It's totally reversed. It's like, okay, like, stop making the algorithms, that promote like that, this addiction that of scrolling, unlimited scrolling on Facebook and Twitter. Yeah. Stop that. Maybe just say, this is what you're gonna get for the day. No, kids.
So this is coming from the state of Florida, the land of the freely abusing your rights.
Yeah, right.
But this particular shtick that coming from the thing is not new. This one of the earliest versions of this came from the Tories, right? This is a typical Tory type thing where the Tories, which have got nothing to really show for, because if you find what the Tories are actually doing, you find that they're actually, politically bankrupt in their.
The Tories brought back fox hunting, my friend. They brought back fox hunting.
And Tories, the Tories right now, because they're desperate, are resulting to culture war type stuff. And what that means is they don't care. And I think because the Tory plan to essentially ban social media for people under 16. They don't care that it's impractical. All they care is the virtue signal a group saying support Tories because look what we do. That's why this is done. This is why the place in Florida
it's the thing is like, to me I don't think, particularly because as much as we all speak out about safety online and about how Twitter and Facebook need to be responsible for the shit that exists there, banning 16-year-olds from accessing information is not the way to go about that.
It's cultish. It's all on the borderline.
Yeah, plus, it's going to be impossible to
Because
enforce, right?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah, kids
You-
are
you-
very
you're
tech
making-
savvy. They will make an alternate app to communicate with each other. They will come up with it,
It's
and you won't even know that
it's
it's on their
already-
phone.
it's already illegal for kids like that old, at least in the United States, and I'm pretty sure the age is 18 in Canada, to get alcohol. That's already illegal.
Yeah, 19.
Hey, is it 19 in Canada? Well, either
Or
way,
18.
16 is still illegal.
Or 18, depending on which
Yes.
province.
Yes.
Okay. Well, either way, all of those are above 16. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that 16-year-olds are drinking just like they were when I was in high school.
So, like, the thing is that restricting teenagers from internet access and access to information is nothing new for Florida. Florida is all about keeping children and anybody under a specific age away from as much information as possible, right? So they're already doing that with book banning and already trying to do that through their educational system, and this is just another step at trying to control and stupefy their population as much as possible. However, it is important to do something and have the governments be doing something and having restrictions on what access and what Twitter and Facebook and these social media apps are allowed to do and what information they're allowed to take and what they're allowed to do with that information once they have it. This is not the way to do that. I agree that they should be doing something, and I agree that the internet is not for kids, right? The internet is not a safe place. But that does not mean that there should not be websites that are catered to, to that age group. There's a reason why YouTube Kids exists, where it's supposed to be a far more strict access. It's supposed to be a far more parental-friendly area for those people to do that thing, and YouTube ought to be held responsible
no live
for that.
chat.
Exactly. And so, like, having the same thing applied to a Twitter or to a Facebook, I think is fine. However, this is not the way to do it.
Also, like, kids nowadays, we have seen in COVID, they have done all their assignment work, given all their exams online.
Online.
Are
Yep.
you going to restrict that? Assignment submissions, right?
Yep.
Exams, everything. Communication with their peers in school and academics.
I find it
Wow.
amazing
Florida
that
just shut
these-
off the internet for everyone. They should just shut off the internet for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
I find it
Just
amazing that these...
Just like the Communist Party of China, Florida's just gonna shut off information to their state.
Hey, those kids can't join Facebook if there's no internet at all.
There you go.
I find it amazing that, for example, the similar sort of Tory gentleman of Putin party that decries the nanny state and government interference
Smaller government.
advocates for government interference, and this is one
On
of
your
the
kids.
problems you have with
They
this
are
sort of-
infringing on your parental rights to raise your child in a system that allows your child to access to information.
Yeah.
Look,
You know,
the Republican cry for small government has always been a ruse, right? Whenever the Republicans are the party that has the majority of the power in either a state or in the federal government, they spend more than the Democrats will ever do. They don't always increase like the power of regulatory bodies, but like they up the size of the military. They'll do all sorts of things like that, right? They're not actually small government. They are instead for more of the parts of government that basically everyone hates, except maybe the IRS, and for less of all the other parts of the government, right? If there's a part of the government that you think you kind of like, unless it's the military, the Republicans want to get rid of it. If there's a part of the government that you really think sucks, Republicans probably want to make it bigger.
And
Unless,
worse
again, it's
than
the
that,
IRS.
you know, the Republicans have been infected by the libertarian idea, right? Libertarianism typically is a malady that essentially says, I'm going to be a selfish asshole and do what I want to, but I'll put it in the name of freedom and liberty because you like freedom and liberty, don't you? Let me be a selfish prick and say no to everyone else, right?
Well, it's
And-
hypocritical,
and, you know,
right?
Yes, and property. So you know, and it is amazing how much these Tory memes move around, right? I have to say, on the other hand, to be fair to the original Tories, the people who are it appears that the citizens of the former United Kingdom are much more advanced than currently the United States, because they seem to be on the path of kicking the Tories out big time. Places
All right,
like,
but when
like
is
the
the
country I live in aren't there yet, right? We're still.
when is
toying
Florida
with-
going to bring back fox hunting? I want to go fox hunting in Florida.
Oh my god.
No, Florida will do manatee hunting.
Swamp
That'll
puppy.
be a Florida.
Oh yeah, that's what it would be. It would be
okay.
manatee. Ew, 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 ew. I hate everything about that. Never say that again. So, speaking of Florida, and kicking out Tories and changing in political spheres, surprise!
Hey,
Eh,
Political.
Yay! Ron DeSantis, Governor Florida man.
Ooh.
Governor Florida man dropping out of the political race for president because he sucks and nobody likes him. Yay!
The man with the highest of heels.
The highest of heels. It's basically cowboy stilettos.
Yeah, basically. Like, some of the like examples of the lifts in those boots are like, how is he even able to walk in them? Like, holy crap! And it's just because he's a short boy and he doesn't like it.
Yay!
He does not like being short.
He has a
Yeah,
Napoleon
no,
complex.
he
Unga bunga.
basically, yeah, it's a little odd because like, look, he was doing better than Nikki Haley, who is still in. Although clearly, I mean, Trump's going to win the nomination. I think the real question is, if Trump is disqualified, which I still think is not like, it's a reasonable possibility. I don't expect it.
It's
But
plausible.
I can think
Yeah,
it's plausible, and I can think it's certainly what should happen
sure.
per the Constitution. If you were going to go in for all that originalism, like those, conservative justices like to say that they're interested in.
Sure. Yeah.
But even if they don't want to go for that, there are good reasons that they should probably disqualify him. For instance, wanting to retain their own power. Because if they put back in someone who thinks that he's basically just a dictator, they won't have any power over him, and he'll make sure they know it. But anyway,
Right.
if he's disqualified and he's the nominee, what happens to the Republican ticket? I don't know.
My favorite thing about this is that not only did Ron DeSantis start his campaign and announce it on X, formerly known as Twitter, but he also announced he was leaving and dropping also on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Hey, like Linda Yaccarino said, it happens on X. Most
Right?
of that, most of the it is just anti-Semitic nonsense, but it's on X.
And it appears here that Governor Florida man's stick is to find a issue that a narrow niche is really passionate about, and pretend that he is in their camp, and therefore implies that they should support him. So he goes around, particularly in culture wars, and finding various victims he can go after, or other political things, and that's essentially what he seems to be about. Now it's up to the state of Florida to manage their political leaders. The problem is that state of Florida's elections are probably one of the four most fraudulently or poorly run in the state.
Well, that's
I
actually
would
kind of
add to that.
interesting. Some
Projection,
chats talking about that the reason he dropped is in hopes of running for VP or being the VP.
Interesting.
No, but
Interesting.
wait a minute. The
Yeah.
Constitution
Oh.
explicitly states not that Trump cares about it, but the Constitution states that the president and vice president cannot be from the same state. When Bush asked
Nice.
Dick Cheney to find a vice presidential candidate, Dick Cheney moved to Wyoming and said, "Pick me."
Governor Florida man's
Because
gonna have to move
Cheney-
out of Florida.
Cheney and Bush
Or-
are
If
from
I
the
may
same state.
also,
Now,
Or Trump will just declare his primary
Trump-
residence to be someplace else.
Right.
He owns
Trump-
buildings all over the place.
It's true.
So Trump moved to Florida for one might say tax reasons, and one might also say avoidance of New York State reasons. But Governor Florida man is clearly a Florida resident and has to stay that way. I don't see a Trump DeSantis ticket working.
No, I don't either. Go ahead, Manya. What you got?
So I was looking at the Churchill quote that the Churchill Society that DeSantis quoted that the Churchill Society said he never said. You know
Yeah.
what this reminded me of? Fox News covering critical race theory and totally misrepresenting what Martin Luther King said about
Oh yeah.
racism.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
You know
Yep,
that
same-
all this
same thing.
positivity needs to be tempered with solid realism, and they just completely yeeted that off and ran with it.
There's also been like other stuff going on as well with it, with these primaries too, where like Haley's getting into like weird
Oh, yeah.
fights with Trump. It's just
Well, I mean,
chaos.
she's the only opposition he has left, and the thing that's crazy to me is that like the New Hampshire race was called the primary race was called close when there was a 10% difference between
Yeah.
number one and number two. In most races, that would be called a blowout. But the thing is
Right.
that Trump is such a presumptive win for the Republican nomination that being 10 points behind him is seen as the neck and neck, which is
Right.
Yeah.
a little crazy to me,
Well-
especially given that, this time 8 years ago, most people were like, this idiot's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So understand that winners of early primaries are not necessarily the presumptive nominee of the party, right?
Right.
Even for example,
True.
the case of Biden, jumped in the South Carolina thing. So
Mhm.
that's one item. Oftentimes as well, a candidate will declare progress, they'll call it victory, if they do better than expected. And Haley did better than expected.
Fair.
But the big thing here is Trump's apparent narcissism makes him just go in apoplectic rage if somebody is essentially getting in his way, right? And Haley, DeSantis was assumed to be the person who was getting in Trump's way, and so Trump had levels of vitriol on DeSantis. Now Haley seems to be one, and Trump's rants are against Haley are just off the chart craziness, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's actually refreshing. It's I shouldn't be promoting this, but it's actually refreshing a woman calling a man unhinged.
In the speeches that followed, Haley treated the night like a victory, calling the primary far from over, while Trump attacked his
Sure.
opponent by mocking her clothing and saying she had a very bad night. Trump has been
Dude, did you
ramping
see
up
your
his
hands?
Trump has been ramping up his personal attacks on Haley, bringing back his bird brain nickname from earlier in the primary and even using an incorrect version of Haley's first name. In the days that followed the primary, the back and forth between the two has been increasingly sharp series of bards, with Haley building on a new strategy of going directly after a candidate she avoided criticizing too harshly until now.
It appears that what Haley is doing is trying to goad Trump into being more Trump, right?
Yeah.
One of Trump's problems is he's such a narcissist, even when he's talking to somebody else about some topic, it's always about him, right? And
Right.
so even when he does well in a state, it's about him doing well in the state and the state doing him a favor. So
Right.
Haley is basically pulling this out of Trump. Now, probably the more, that when Christie was in the race, even though I'm not a fan of him, he actually did a lot more of calling Trump, for what he's doing. It is, in my opinion, a really great disservice that the gentleman Putin party, called the Republicans, are solely backing Trump and assuming that Trump is their presumptive nominee, even though they technically have, they're making go through their primary. And for that reason, I would encourage anyone who is a registered member of that party to resign from the party. And I would encourage people to not vote for any candidate at any level who is a registered member of that party, for the reason that the party, most of them know better. They know who Trump is. This is not any sort of a mystery, even those that were under Trump's attack. And yet they're too cowardly
If I
they're
miss
too
it.
much of a coward to go and say Trump is not appropriate.
It's like
is not behaving in a way, right? And so for that fact,
Yeah,
I think we got to hold GOP accountable, or General Putin, as I call him.
oh, I'm big. So it's like the Republicans are saying to their demographic, "Oh, you're gonna vote for us anyways, right?" And then what they're going is so we are catering to the extreme ones, the ones who support Trump, because you're going to vote for us anyways. We know that by default. They take you for granted. They're taking you for granted, and that's why they're just listening to Trump. Whatever he wants goes.
Yeah, most GOP. Yeah, there are a few hardcore MAGA stuff, but most GOP elected officials understand that if they turn off the MAGA group, let's call it 10, 20, 30% of their base, that's the margin between losing and winning. And so because they are such cowards, they're political cowards, they will suck up to Trump. And even though they know what Trump's about, right? Members of Congress know the insurrections because many of them were the victims of that. They know,
right?
And yet they're doing it anyway. The Republican Party elite know who Trump is and what he's doing, and they're supporting it anyway. And for that, you could say, well, Trump's got this narcissistic mental problem, but the GOP base is not.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is it becomes newsworthy when there's a prominent GOP person who even says something mildly anti-Trump. That becomes actual news.
So there's also this idea
if you're a GOP party member, please resign from your party. If you are a person who votes, please do not vote for any member of the GOP at any level. And if you're one of those people who say, yeah, well, what about Biden? What about blah, blah, blah? If you just do the whataboutisms, you've already lost. So sorry.
Lindsey Graham said, back in 2016, that if Trump got the political nomination and became the representative for the Republican Party, that the party would fall apart. And that the party itself, the Republican Party, would no longer be the Republican Party that it once was. And I think he's correct.